Thank you for your patience, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to today's program featuring Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Tyler Cohen. I know, what a matinee. That's all I can say. I'm Andrea Grossman, the founder of Writer's Bloc, now in our 30th season. Thank you. So here's the part that many of you know really well. You know that we're living in crazy times. So before I get to today's program, I need to go over some security. We love our congressional reps to be outspoken, courageous, and fearless, and God knows we wish we had many more Jasmine Crockett's in our midst. But today, we insist that the audience not be outspoken and fearless. I want you to be quiet and afraid because we have lots of security here, and the floor belongs only to Brian and to Jasmine. She told me I could call her Jasmine, so now we're friends. If there's any behavior that makes our guests or speakers feel uncomfortable, we reserve the right to remove offenders because outbursts will not be tolerated. Okay, now for today. Jasmine Crockett is in town for other business, and I know that we had to seize this moment to have her visit with us. So, a voting rights activist and social justice attorney by training, she's made her priorities clear. Since she stepped into her Washington office, she's been making a lot of racket about power, its abuse, and what she wants to do about it. So much racket that the governor of her state has found a way to boot her and other Democratic congressional reps right out of town. Being muted is one thing, but being shut down, that's when you know you're a great communicator. Tyler Cohen, a fabulously generous friend to Writer's Bloc, is really the busiest podcaster around. He's created so many important programs on his massive YouTube platform, and it's clear that each and every Democratic elected official in the country sees the immense value in being on one of his programs. He's also an author of the best-selling book, Shameless, Republicans' Deliberate Dysfunction and the Battle to Preserve Our Democracy. It has just come out in paperback and is available in the lobby. He signed a ton of copies, so I urge you to read it and to think about it because it's fun. He has the gift of writing like he speaks with precision, passion, and factual backup. I shouldn't say it's fun. It's really necessary reading. It's so not fun sometimes. So here's what's going to happen. When Brian and Jasmine walk down the aisle right now, welcome them. You want to take photos, I know. So when they land on the stage, take 20 seconds to take a few pictures. You can stand up, you can take out your phones, and then you put them away so that you don't disturb other people. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Tyler Cohen. Okay, cell phones away, everybody. Make sure they're off before you put them back in your clear plastic bags.
I'm trying to smile for the pictures.
Okay, let's do this. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Writer's Bloc. And, of course, thanks to the Congresswoman. So because I do breaking news, I figured we would start off today with a little bit of a reaction to some breaking news for today. And what? What could possibly warrant that kind of reaction? Sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning, Donald Trump took to Truth Social and tweeted, "The Biden FBI placed 274 agents into the crowd on January 6th. If this is so, which it is, a lot of very good people will be owed big apologies. What a scam. Do something, President DJT." So, if I was doing this interview with you on YouTube, I would normally just ask for your reaction to that rambling screed that he graced us with at 3:38 in the morning.
I think if the president has an issue with whatever the president did on January 6th, maybe we should get rid of that president.
So that actually brings up a good point, because there are kind of two avenues that folks can take. And on one hand, I think both are important in the sense that there is mocking him when he's owed mockery, but also fearing the things that happen at the hands of a very weaponized, very dangerous government. And so how do you reconcile those two things, which seem in conflict with each other? And there's lots of people that say, don't give him the power that he's so desperate, that he craves so desperately by taking everything he says seriously. And then at the same time, there's the opposite point of view. So how do you think about that?
Okay, so if you are living in Trump's America, you know not to believe that he's not a threat. So I think we need to take everything seriously. At the same time, I am good for mocking him. So the mocking, though, is to amplify how ridiculous he is. In a time in which he and his regime want to pretend as if I'm low IQ and other Black women and other members of the LGBTQIA community, and actually everybody who's not old, white, male, and straight and rich, he wants to other us, right? And so I do think it is important for us to take those moments to really point out how insane and ridiculous he is. So like talking about January 6th, because clearly the dementia, honey, is sitting in. And he doesn't realize that he was the president on January 6th. We do. Lord knows we do, because we were kicking him out at that time. But I do think that it is important that we also talk about the real threats to our democracy and those cracks that we see in our foundation, those cracks that are leading to the indictment of Tish James out of New York, those cracks that are leading to the indictment of James Comey, those cracks that have allowed for probably the best of our DOJ to decide that they just couldn't do it because they had some form of ethics behind them and they just decided to resign. That crack that unfortunately has probably some of our best FBI agents deciding to abdicate their post, or that crack that anybody who has any decency within the DHS organization, specifically ICE, has allowed them to say, I need to go and do something else. So we need to make sure that we understand that these threats are real, but at the same time, we cannot allow them to scare us. When he went after free speech, and he's still going after it, and he's been getting after it, I've been trying to tell people that we did not pay enough attention to him when there was a football player by the name of Colin Kaepernick, and they wanted to shut him up. And this wasn't really about whether or not you agreed with what he did, but it was supposed to be protected constitutional speech, what he decided to do. And we didn't really raise the roof on that enough. But Trump was in office at that time, and we're talking about a government official that went after someone who was playing in the NFL. And then you fast forward it to Trump being back in office. He's decided to go after our newspapers. He's decided to go after the news outlets. He's shaking them down for money. They're just giving him, for the first time, he's for real rich. They are just shaking people down. And as my senator, who I usually don't like to claim from the state of Texas, decided to say they're acting like mobsters. And we have to be willing to call that out. When you decide to be silent, when you decide to say, I'm just going to keep my head down, we've only got about, I don't want to count the days, but a little more than 3 years, this guy doesn't plan on leaving. As the government is shut down, he's still building this bootleg, party room, as I like to call it, in the White House that nobody asked for. That's the only thing that's not shut down. The House is shut down. We're not going back in. We're not doing any work for the American people. And his ballroom is still being constructed. Now, who would construct a ballroom that's going to take, I don't know how long, that's going to take, I don't know how many dollars, if they plan on leaving in 3 years? He's not planning on leaving. It's not a joke when he puts a Trump 2028 hat on the desk in the Oval as he's supposed to be having a real meeting with the leadership within the House and the Senate about how we are going to work for the American people. We should all be very concerned, and your concerns should lead you to engage in conversations. Conversations not just with your friends, but also those people that don't see the world the same way as you do. Because unfortunately, we are all in the same sinking ship right now. And it is time for us to make sure that we do the opposite of what they want us to do. They divided us in this last election. We've got to come together and recognize that if we stand together, we will always do so much more than we can as we're divided.
On this idea of a third term, because I know that this is like we can, dance around the edges, but this is something that a lot of folks are obviously extremely concerned about. And I think that there are people, in the broader media ecosystem who say, well, this isn't something we should worry about. And so they'll poo-poo folks who I think rightfully draw attention to this issue, which will in practice, in effect, just lead us to a situation where, okay, we're going to come upon that moment and we're going to be completely unprepared because nobody is really acknowledging the reality of the situation. In large part, you've got the left that is united against this idea. I think that you will need folks within his orbit, within his administration, on the broader right that are going to have to be opposed to this so that they don't have as easy as a glide path as they think they'll have in making sure that this happens. And look, a lot of the people who served as a bulwark to Trump's worst successes in the first administration, they're gone. Like Bill Barr, not exactly some crunchy liberal, right? Like this guy's not marching along, alongside BLM protesters in 2020. Bill Barr is as far right as it gets. He called Trump's stolen election claims in 2020 bullshit. He's gone. He's replaced by somebody like Pam Bondi, who is there expressly because she is an election denier. So he's filled his ranks with people who not only aren't going to oppose him, but are there because they will make it easier for him to do the things that he wants to do. And so how much or how little confidence do you have that if he does try to undermine the Constitution, if he does try to install himself for a third term, that there will be people in that broader right-wing orbit who are going to serve as offer themselves up as a bulwark to what he's trying to do?
I don't have any faith in the Republicans. So, I don't think that that's where it's going to come from. I think we are going to have to rely on the courts, which is also a very scary reality. But the lower courts have actually been doing their job. Whether they've been appointed by Republicans or Democrats, they have been very good on the Constitution.
There were some Trump-appointed judges.
Correct.
I believe Judge
Immergut
in Portland?
The latest issue, yes, in Oregon.
Yeah.
That is a Trump appointee. And so, we've seen as he decided that he was just going to do away with birthright citizenship because that's what presidents can do in his mind, right? We saw that there were Reagan appointee, everybody, bro, no, this is not happening, right? And so I think that this one is so clear. There is no nuance. I personally don't think that he plans to run for re-election. I don't think that that's actually the plan. I actually think, if you remember when Zelensky was in the Oval Office, he calls Zelensky a dictator. And he called him a dictator. Forget Putin, child. He ain't got nothing to say about Putin. But anyway, he called Zelensky a dictator, and he said because he hadn't had any elections here recently. Well, usually when bombs are falling, it's kind of like we don't do elections. So when you see the things that he's done as it relates to the bombing of the boats in international waters, when you see what he's doing with our military on domestic streets, I think that what he actually, and he's talking about things like the Insurrection Act, what I think that he wants to do is he wants to declare that there is such a conflict that we cannot have elections, just like in places of like actual war. And he may actually get us into a war. I'm surprised somebody ain't slapped him yet. But no, seriously, like, because imagine if we had random Americans in international waters that are minding their business, fishing or doing whatever, and a foreign country decided they were just gonna like bomb us out the water. Okay. So if you, because y'all acting real proper, as they would say at the schoolyard, those are fighting words. These are fighting actions, right? And he's doing a lot, and because of who the Americans have historically been, we've been given the benefit of the doubt. Like, we're getting a lot more rope than we should have. But it's not because he's not trying. Not to mention, something that people aren't talking about a lot, and I actually tell Democrats not to talk about it at all, but here I go. I do, because we lose. The conflict in the Middle East. Right now, there is a peace deal that's been brokered, right? This peace deal ain't new, y'all. This isn't like, oh, Trump came in, so not, no. And I am someone who has been to the region before. I've sat down with leadership on multiple sides, as well as I've traveled to Qatar. And I can't go into a lot of my conversations about different things, but definitely even in the midst of the war, I would talk to some folk to try to figure out, well, what's happening? Because Qatar was supposed to kind of be mediating everything, and I wanted to kind of get a feel. So I say all this to say, this isn't a new agreement. This is an agreement that's been sitting there. What is new is that somehow U.S. troops are going in. Okay? Most people aren't even talking about that part. And if you know anything about Netanyahu, who also has been around for a very long time, he's been trying to get U.S. troops over there into that conflict for a long time. There are people that thought that October 7th was like the beginning of a conflict. I got news for you. You got some studying to do on the region if you believe that that was the beginning of the tensions and the conflict in the Middle East. So I personally believe, and I've met Netanyahu before. He is more intelligent than Trump. I'm going to just put it out there.
Low bar.
I don't know that takes a lot. I really don't.
Left that one hanging there.
I don't know. It's like, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Not. But I have seen how Putin has played him like a fiddle. And I personally am a little skeptical, and I personally believe that Netanyahu is playing Trump right now. And so, obviously I'm going to hope and pray for actual peace because the people deserve it. But I am quite skeptical, and I think that this may be another thing that throws us into a chaotic situation as relates to a war-torn kind of status for us. And so I don't believe he's going to run for a third term. I do believe, we've heard, I think it was Steve Bannon who said, we're looking at all the options. It's like, it ain't no options, bro. It ain't none, right? And so that's kind of where my mind has been.
Well, on that point, he's already trying to give himself a pretext to be able to say that there is more conflict. To be able to deploy troops domestically, you need to satisfy one of three conditions. There needs to be a foreign invasion, there needs to be a rebellion or insurrection, there needs to be a failure of the local government to be able to effectuate federal laws. And so he deploys troops into Los Angeles, claiming that there is a failure of the local government to be able to effectuate its laws. Judge Breyer in California disagrees. Now that's been appealed up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. In Portland, said the same thing, and he's come out very often, and I'm sure that you've heard Trump say that there's an invasion or an insurrection. He keeps using the word insurrection. I think that has two reasons he's doing that. He's trying to devalue the fact that he incited an actual insurrection on January 6th, but second of all, he's trying to make the case in the court of public opinion that he's satisfying that second plank, which is that there is a rebellion or an insurrection, to give himself some legal pretext, legal justification to be able to deploy the troops domestically. Judge Immergut, as we mentioned before, swatted that away. That's a judge who Trump himself appointed, and said that his claims that there was some legal justification were, quote, untethered to reality. Again, this is somebody who he put on the court, saying that he's untethered to reality. Which is great, because at that point, the judge is like, I already got my job, so I don't really need to, And then we have Judge Perry in Chicago, who again swatted away Trump's justification to claim that he had satisfied any of those three planks to be able to deploy the troops domestically. And so, as you mentioned, it seems to be working pretty well at the trial court level. Now these cases are bubbling up to the, in California and Portland, bubbling up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. How confident are you as these cases continue to progress? How confident are you as these cases head into other jurisdictions, but also into the appeals court level, that will continue to see the court serve as an effective bulwark against what he's doing? Because, what he's doing right now is trying to lay the foundation for exactly what you're claiming, to say that we're in some huge, dangerous conflict that he can then use down the line as a pretext to be able to say, we couldn't possibly have an election right now with all these insurrections happening across the country.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, much like what I experienced when I was practicing law, it depends on what circuit, honey. Some circuits are better than others. They are not made equally. I think that the things that he does are so outlandish that potentially surviving the circuit courts looks good no matter how conservative the circuit court is, because it's just so far out, and you have to build a consensus by the time you get to the circuit court. It's not going to be one person. It's that Supreme Court. It's the Supremes that bother me. The fact that he has, I think I was on your page, and I think you were the one that posted this, but the fact that he has this immunity right now, it has only further emboldened him. And I think the idiots around him that are affording him the latitude to do the things that he's doing, because he's not doing it by himself, I think that they somehow believe that they got immunity too. And, there's been a lot of talk about Nixon's AG went to prison. Pam, them bars gonna be calling, girl. The bars gonna be calling. And so, because Mike Johnson don't want to go back in because we got to protect the pedophiles and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not, so I'm here with y'all. So here it is. We're supposed to be in session. And so if any of you had an opportunity to watch Pam Bondi, she was supposed to come to House Judiciary as well, which is my territory. And the gag on this is that when it was announced that she was going to be testifying in front of our committee, one of the Republicans on the committee texted me and said, Pam is coming, so get ready. This is one of the Republicans, right? And then I had to get on to my staff. I'm like, why didn't y'all tell me? They were like, what are you talking about? Like, it was breaking news, and a Republican told me because he wanted me to get ready. And so, but if you noticed what she did try to do, she just decided to be evasive because she was about to lie under oath, something that they just charged somebody else for. She was about to lie to Congress. And so it is really disturbing to see that. But I don't know that we will get what we need out of the Supreme Court. I appreciate that our trial court judges, no matter how far right they may be, they seemingly are doing their best to still stay tethered to the Constitution itself. These are people that have lifetime appointments. But the difference between a Supreme Court justice and every other judge in this country, whether you're talking about a federal judge or whether you're talking about a state judge or even a city judge, is that they all have some form of ethics that can bite them in their ass. Unfortunately, we don't have that when it comes to the 9 most important and most powerful judges in our country. And so now that Trump has exposed all of these problems and loopholes within our democracy, I do think that it is going to be important that we fortify in all ways, in all branches, and we absolutely have to start by making sure that there is some rule of ethics that our Supreme Court justices have to abide by, because right now, just like the Department of Justice has been turned into his personal law firm or his personal retribution firm, whichever you want to call it, that's what I feel like we're missing with the Supreme Court, is we don't know who's putting money into their pockets. We do know that they are taking money, though. We have figured that part out, right? So we don't know who all is doing what and pulling what strings. And frankly, I don't believe, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, their approval rating is some of the lowest that it's been in the history of this country, because some of these opinions are so far out that they literally don't make sense. And so I never know when I can rely on the Supreme Court to just follow the basics. And so I think the circuit courts they'll do what they need to do on these very clear situations. But as we talk about him not being tethered to reality, he just had his annual checkup. Right. But it
If I'm not
it
mistaken,
wasn't.
it was 6'4", 250 pounds, 4.8% body fat, and it was weird. They wrote on the physical form that he benches 475 pounds, which I hadn't seen before.
I can't. But it's interesting.
Squat was 260. Deadlift 555. Very impressive.
But this, I don't know how many annuals he gonna have in 1 year. Is my question. It's not considered an anyway. Basic stuff right there. So the thing is, though, I have a number of friends that are medical doctors, like friends, like people that I've known my entire life. And so, like, one of my childhood friends, she always messages me about him, right? And she's like, he is sick. And so she goes through all this stuff. Like, so she's an emergency medicine doctor. And so she's like, I'm telling you, he's hypertensive. He's like she goes on this rant about how unhealthy and fat and ridiculous he is, and how he needs to put the McDonald's down or pick it up. But I just want people to be happy. Just be happy. McDonald's, Happy Meal. I just want him to be happy. So interestingly enough, like, I've got some other friends that are doctors too, right? So I'm like, okay, so this Cankle situation, So I'm asking, right? And I was asking about the hand. And I was like, do y'all have an estimate on how bad it may be for the president? Because I just want the American people to know.
Looking for a prognosis here.
Yeah, right. And so in all seriousness, though, they're like, no, for real. Like, he's bad off. And so I've had multiple friends of mine that are doctors that are like, we believe he's had some sort of heart situation. He's had a heart attack or he's had a stroke. And most of them have come to the conclusion that they believe wholeheartedly that he's absolutely had a stroke. So they've talked about this thing like drop foot. So I'm like Googling what is drop foot. Like I'm like, they're telling me all these things. They're talking about his face. There's all these things, right, that I know nothing about. I'm just like, something wrong with him mentally, y'all. And I mean, as a criminal defense attorney, that's the one thing we're supposed to be able to do. Like, when everyone who faces a situation, they got to be competent. So as lawyers, we are not necessarily required to diagnose them, but literally it can be malpractice if you see somebody and it's the signs. I'm telling y'all, he got the signs. And so I'm like, all right, so mentally and physically, he is unwell. So when they announced that he was going back to Walter Reed, I was like, well, that's weird. Because they were like, he's going for his annual. I was like, did y'all also forget? Y'all got the dementia too? Because it wasn't that long ago. Because that's when he was like basically saying he was Barack Obama. Yeah. And so, y'all know Barack is fit. So I was like, okay, this is our time to drop our investigative letter. Because we had been working on it, but when you're trying to break through the media cycle and all, you got to be very thoughtful about when you put certain stuff out. So I was like, oh, we're going. And so we took all these incidents, and my staffer, I'm like, dude, this letter is getting way too long. I mean, it was like he's falling asleep. He forgets that he appointed Jerome Powell. We would have added January 6th if we had dropped, he forgot he was president on January 6th. The rest of the world did not. So there is something happening, and this is based on what actual medical professionals have told me, mentally as well as physically. And then after they put out their report of his most recent physical, it has only led those on the medicinal side to think for sure that he had a stroke. And so there are some that are believing that it may have taken place when he went MIA, because he never goes away, y'all, never. But when he went MIA, and then all the theories started popping up, and it's like, is he alive? What's happening? Because there was nothing, right? There are people that are theorizing, because I think within 4 to 6 weeks of one of these incidents, you have to go in and you have to get imaging and things like that, which is something they can't do at the White House, which would require them to get him over to Walter Reed. So we are asking the serious probing questions, because mental as well as physical fitness are things that the American people are supposed to be made aware of when you are serving at the helm. So as much as I make fun of cankles, it is very serious, and we need to know.
4 minute 15 second mile, I think, was another one on there. Bicep curls, 60-pound dumbbells in each hand. I don't know. Look, it's who among us hasn't had 7 annual physicals this year?
None of us can afford it, but go ahead.
The big cynic in me is like, these are the motherfuckers that live to like 110. It's always the good ones that are like,
the good ones die young.
Everybody's say a prayer for Dolly Parton, but meanwhile,
Dolly says she fine.
I know. Dolly's sister's out there. Dolly had like a kidney stone. Dolly's sister's like, say a prayer for Dolly. Things are getting grim. And Dolly's like, God damn it! Now I have to go out there.
She goes, I'm not dead yet.
So with all of that said, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit here and talk about what the fighters in the Democratic Party look like moving forward, because I think a lot of the preservation of democracy itself is going to rely on Democrats taking a much different tack than they have before. And we all in this room have come up in an era where Democrats are the party of strongly worded letters, where, Lucy puts the football down and pulls it away while Charlie Brown goes for it every single fucking time, over and over and over again, thinking that if we just confer some goodwill onto Republicans, that this time they'll reciprocate. This time they're going to be good partners in governance. And so talk to me a little bit about what you see on the left right now in light of this desperation, this thirst for Democrats to not just learn their lesson that Republicans are not partners in democracy, but take a forward-leaning posture so that we are not just constantly leading from behind.
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple of things. Obviously, Brian, you are doing the Lord's work, for sure. No, yeah, let's clap it up. And the reason that I bring it up is because it's about how we fight, right? And, my caucus, we love to have a press conference, y'all. They be like, let's go to the Triangle and have a press conference. And I'm like, I don't even know if anybody's going to see that, guys. One of the issues that I had with the Biden-Harris administration, and why I really fought so hard for the administration as a whole, and I never got engaged in the public back and forth about who should be the nominee, was because they were doing the work. They did the work, right? And I did not feel like we communicated out what that work was. And so you may as well say you did nothing, because unfortunately the opposition was able to go out and say just that. They were able to say, well, they haven't done anything. That's not true. We did a lot, right? But and I love Joe Biden, with my whole being. God bless that man. Because anybody willing to give this country over 50 years of public service, child, give him the Nobel Peace Prize. It's hard in these public servant streets. But one of the things about him is he was an old school politician, where people didn't know who the electeds were. They just were life was lifing, right? We lived a very privileged life where you did not have to watch the news 24/7 to make sure that the sky was not going to fall. We were used to that. We were used to boring, right? Where we could focus on something else. And so it is very difficult for those that come from the old school of politicking. Not necessarily saying old, but if you are from the old school, or if you are unwilling to understand how it is that we have to politic now, then we're going to lose, right? So you can fight as hard as you can, but if nobody knows that you're doing anything, you're fighting in vain, okay? So that's number one. So the reason that I brought up Brian is because not only does he make sure that he's getting information out there, truth out there, he's making sure that he's training up others so that they can do the same. So literally from the philosophy of each one, teach one. And that's what we've got to be. One of the things that was so frustrating for me, though, in recent times is people kept saying, who's our leader? Who's our leader? And people are still saying it now. And honestly, I don't think that we should be looking for one person to come and save us. What we've got to do is we've got to harness our power, because in a democracy, the power belongs to the people. And as we've seen on No King's Day, which also was when he decided to have his funky little birthday, more people decided to go and do the free stuff than the paid stuff with him. It was glorious. And we have another No Kings coming up on October 18th. I say that, and some people, I come from the civil rights streets, so I've been out there, I've marched, I've helped protesters, I've done all the things, and some people are of the school of thought that none of that matters. It does. It does. I will tell you that is not the only thing that we have to do. But number one, when you are in community like that, you start to figure out who else is seeing the world the way that you are. It is a great way to organize. And so for me, it's a matter of what are we going to do? What are we going to do to make sure that we send a message to those in power of who holds the real power? And that's the people. The best example that I can give you of truly, because some people are like, I don't know. The best example I can give you is Jimmy Kimmel. Best example. Because when the people decided to be mad and decided to operate with their pocketbook, it changed everything in 3 days? It was real fast. Whatever it was real fast. Disney was like, right? But we have to have that type of discipline in so many other areas, especially since this administration is money driven. They don't want to listen to us as individuals. But these billionaires that they're looking out for, they became billionaires on our backs. It's because of our labor and our dollars that afforded them the luxury of becoming billionaires. And so when you start to say, you know what, we don't align, we're going to pull back, then those people then go talk to him, because that's the only people he's going to listen to. He's not listening to us. He's not listening to the Republicans that are leaving the House and the Senate in droves because they know that they cannot get reelected. He's not listening to them. But we still have power. So just be thoughtful about how we flex our power and use it all the time. And I started this off by saying each one teach one, which is what I feel like the model is for Brian. We've got to do that. I tell people all the time that we've become so disconnected. While we should be more connected because of social media, we are less connected. How many times have you been out to eat and you look at somebody else that's out to eat and the two people are sitting at the table, but they may as well be by themselves somewhere because they are on their phones, right? People are literally living in this ulterior reality, right? This alternate reality. And we've got to get back to connecting, because it's easy to hate somebody if it's just off in this other space, right? But if it's like, oh, wow, my neighbor is a Kamala voter. I thought that they had 3 heads. My neighbor, I like my neighbor. Maybe I should talk to my neighbor about why my neighbor thought Kamala was a good choice. We've got to start reconnecting. And so some of this is going to be talking to people that you normally would not talk to and telling them, listen, I want the farmers to survive. I do. I love to eat. So, and I'm not finna be the one. So understanding that we are all connected in that way, that's what should be bringing us together. We may be in the urban centers and being the consumers, but baby, we want them farmers to survive. We do, because they feed America, right? But right now, there's always this big divide and there's always this hate between us, but there really shouldn't be. Healthcare. Guess what? This healthcare is disastrous. It's been disastrous, child. It's been a hot mess in the United States for a very long time. But right now, as we are engaged in this fight, where Democrats are fighting back and saying, listen, you need to guarantee these tax credits on the Affordable Care Act, just like y'all guaranteed them for the billionaires forever. You need to go ahead and lock this in. But here's the reality. Let me be real. We keep talking about how the premiums are going up and it's open enrollment, so people are seeing it with their own 2 eyes. They don't have to listen to the Democrats. They are getting it in the mail. They are seeing in real time that their premiums are just skyrocketing. But it has nothing to do with the shutdown. The skyrocketing is because of the big ugly bill. So most people, and I don't think we did as well as we should have done when this bill passed, and it only passed with 1 vote in the House, 1 vote, and the whole country is being sent into a tailspin, right? But we kept talking about 15 to 17 million people on Medicaid or Medicare are going to be kicked off their Medicaid, Medicare. But a lot of people are like, well, I ain't got that. So, how does this impact me? And it's a terrible position to have, but this is the reality of how people function. The reality is that we're pulling $1 trillion out of the healthcare ecosystem, which meant that in order to keep other hospitals open and other health organizations open, that meant that the rest of us got to pay more money. So that's why the premiums are so much higher. But in urban America, chances of the hospitals closing a little bit lessened versus in rural America. So being able to focus in on those things that bring us together and talking about those struggles, I think that that's really going to be the key to getting out of this, because there's so many more of us than there are of them. There's only a few billionaires, right? It's a lot of us that ain't got it. Well, maybe y'all got it. I don't. And so I think that we need to focus on our commonality. And they have exploited being able to dehumanize people, being able to make you fearful of your neighbors, whether they're immigrants, right? That exploitation has led us to where we are today.
And I want to talk about that exploitation of commonality. You know, this situation with the ACA subsidies is kind of the perfect microcosm of what this administration is doing, because you've got administration that swore up and down that it would come in office and lower prices, that cared about food prices, cared about healthcare prices, cared about protecting earned benefits. They were so focused on protecting people that they went down to the granular level of the price of an egg. That's how much they cared about the little guy. And so now you have a situation where the government is shut down, and Republicans are trying to make this a referendum on health care for undocumented immigrants. And ACA subsidies, there is not a dime of ACA subsidies or any federal funding that goes toward undocumented immigrants. But this is the perfect situation because the Republicans are able to just reopen the government if they want to, but they don't want this to be, okay, we've got Donald Trump who is a billionaire who doesn't need ACA subsidies and not going to have any impact on his life. Mike Johnson, John Thune, all these Republican members of Congress, ACA subsidies are not going to impact these people, so they don't give a shit. And they can't take the blame for that because they don't want to say, hey, we're a bunch of wealthy people who don't care about the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are going to impact 24 million regular Americans, and so we need a scapegoat here. We need to distract people by saying, hey, look at those brown people over there. They're actually the real problem. Notwithstanding the fact that those people do not even get a cent, a dime of any of that money that would otherwise be allocated for these ACA subsidies. And so there's a really obvious con at play here where the Republicans are helping themselves by only focusing on their political projects, which are going to be subsidizing fossil fuel companies that in turn fund their campaigns, projects like lowering taxes for millionaires and billionaires. Those are their projects, but they have to keep everybody good and distracted by pitting working class white people against working class brown people, or working class white and brown people against working class undocumented immigrants, whatever it is. It's just making sure that everybody's angry at each other and putting forward these culture wars. And the extent to which that con has kind of been exposed in the last few months is so obvious as it relates to that they came into office promising that they would lower costs, and instead they've started these trade wars, which has raised the cost of everything. They've promised to lower healthcare costs, and I think we're still waiting 2 weeks, if I'm remembering correctly, for that new healthcare plan to come out since 2017. No plan for healthcare, and in fact, they're cutting Medicaid from 17 million Americans, and they're cutting ACA subsidies to 24 million Americans. And so on issue after issue after issue, the con is being exposed. Farmers, they say they would protect the farmers. Now Trump is sending customers to Midwestern soybean farmers and beef farmers down to Argentina and to Australia. And so all of these groups are recognizing the extent to which they're getting fucked over. And so I'm curious from your vantage, because we're all out here in the coastal elitist bastion of Los Angeles, but you are in a red state that I hope is turning more and more purple, and then, God willing, one day a blue state. But from the folks that you've spoken with out there, has there been any sense that they're recognizing that con, that you've got a guy who literally surrounds himself with gold plating in the Oval Office, whose priority is building himself a $200 million ballroom, and that is simultaneously screwing over working class folks, that in fact the promises he made while he was exploiting those people for their votes isn't what he's looking to do right now and that they're recognizing it? Or is our partisanship so calcified that just having an R next to his name and having an R next to their names is enough for them, and it's just, my team is all I care about?
I don't really have a good answer for this because my district, love my district. I don't have a lot of these kind of people. I mean, we're different. I mean, we're in Texas, but my district, there's not a lot of people that have buyer's remorse. Like they did the right thing. It's the other people that haven't. I will tell you that though, because I served on the agriculture committee, and I do feel very passionate about so many things that go through the ag committee, even though I did not want the ag committee. And I'm not on it now, but I did love it while I was there because I had no idea I'd be able to work on so many climate issues on ag, and so I was able to work on sustainable aviation fuels. I was able to work on a lot of things around food insecurity. I was able to work on a bunch of stuff. So I actually really liked my work. Didn't like the committee that much, but I liked the work that came through the committee and the bills that I was able to kind of work on. And so I will tell you that one group that probably never thought that they would like me is the farmers. And so the farmers, no matter what, I mean, I've driven a tractor trailer and all, honey. Yes, there is footage. But the farmers still like to talk to me. And it is because I am very straight-laced. I am very straight up about it, right? So even when we look at things like the Farm Bill that's not been reauthorized, it's supposed to be once every 5 years. We're about 3 years late on it right now. And, I listen to them, I understand them. And usually the Democrats are like, you are not going to cut SNAP benefits. And ultimately in the big ugly bill, they cut SNAP benefits, right? But I know the numbers. Rural America uses more SNAP than urban America. That's number one. Number two, again, it's about the ecosystem. So when you pull that money out of the ecosystem, then what happens to those farmers? Farmers are planning what they are going to plant months in advance based upon what they believe the demand is going to be. So just because you pull out the SNAP dollars doesn't mean that the dollars are going to magically reappear. So now we're talking about not only the farmers, but also the grocery stores, right? So now we're talking about an increase in cost for the grocers because they're saying, well, we have less money coming into our stores, but we still got to keep our lights on. So now cost of food goes up for everyone because now those SNAP dollars aren't in circulation. So again, I'm very good at connecting the dots. And I think if we can just have the conversations, because it is a very unlikely pairing that a girl who does not represent a ton of farmers, I do have some in my district, and grew up in urban St. Louis, Missouri, and definitely does not have a green thumb, that we would be paired up. But I understand the connections. And so I will tell you that my spidey senses tells me that people are starting to wake up. I am going to Tennessee soon because of the special election that's going to take place. And some people would think that is a Hail Mary, and it is. But considering how bad things are and considering the fact that I can go into rural America, have those conversations with those farmers because I understand. I used to live in rural Texas. I know what it is to have your economy be dependent upon that tire plant or that paper plant or that chicken plant. And if it shuts down, I know what it means to that economy. I've lived that life. So I believe that people are waking up. When we look at any special election that has taken place since Donald Trump has been elected, Democrats are overperforming by no less than 10 points. No less than, okay? Now, sometimes that means we still losing because it's like a R plus 20 or something, but no less than 10 points, right? They just flipped that mayoral in Alaska, right? And the special election that I'm going to help out with in Tennessee, I see hope where others may not. I looked at the numbers, and even just in the primary, there's almost 12,000 more Democrats that voted in a special election primary than they did in the regular primary. So Democrats are waking up and getting off the couch. And, I would argue that some Republicans may say, I'm going to stay on the couch, right? We know that as there's been talk about whether or not the president is going to let his friend, maybe should have been co-defendant, out of prison, Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Some of the far righters are like, if you let her out of prison, we're not voting. And I'm like, thank you. Just don't vote. Just don't vote. Just don't vote. Don't vote. Because y'all ain't going to go the right way. Just don't vote. Right? So we see my bestie, Marjorie.
We were getting to that.
But she's been very outspoken against them in all ways, right? She's blaming the shutdown on the Republicans. Thank you for telling the truth for once, Marge. She's talking about the fact that we need to deal with this healthcare situation. She's holding firm on her signature on the discharge petition as it relates to Epstein. I mean, I'm just like, child, this is crazy. I'm living in the upside down when I'm...
All right, so let's talk about that for a moment. Remind us the nickname. What was the nickname?
Somebody knows it. Bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Yeah.
So what is it like now, recognizing that the party has, I don't even know how to say this question, that like Marjorie Taylor Greene that the rest of the party is flanking Marjorie Taylor Greene to the right now, that she has some semblance of I don't know. I mean, look, I don't throw around the word normalcy and Marjorie Taylor Greene in the same sentence that often, but in this situation, I mean, she's holding firm on the Epstein files.
Yeah.
The vote for to force a vote on the Epstein files, the discharge petition. She's the one coming out that's basically ringing the alarm bells. Granted, it's for her own party. I mean, she's not doing this without a partisan reason. She's saying, hey, we're going to get screwed over in midterms because everybody's premiums are going to go up. And everybody on the right is pretending that this is not going to happen. But like math. Like that's how it works. And everybody's going to be able to see the numbers right in front of their faces. And so I'm just curious from your vantage, your old friend Marjorie Taylor Greene, what your reaction was to seeing her. I guess turn into some resistance hero, you know?
You may have gone too far using the H word. Listen, I'll be honest, because I've been asked about her so many times, and people ask me, if I think she's unintelligent. And so honestly, it's been weird, because I'm like, girl, you connecting the dots. Because there are other Republicans like that I talk to that they send me a message on Signal, but our Signal chats don't get leaked. But that literally will tell me we know this is messed up. Like that will actually admit the reality of things, right? And even when everything happened with Charlie Kirk, there were, one of the first members of Congress to reach out to me was a Republican to check on me and my safety because they even know how their people get. And I'm like, I wasn't nowhere near Utah. But they don't connect dots very well, right? Like, so, I was actually in committee with Marge. At the time, it was well documented where I was, but nevertheless, their response is, to end up engaging in more death threats towards me because that makes sense. But anyway, so I say this all to say that Marge never comes across like one that gets it. So I'm trying to figure out what her angle is. Like, I appreciate what she's doing, generally speaking, because there are certain people that if I say it, which I've been saying half this stuff, they just won't listen because it's me, because of the messenger, right? But there are people that will listen to her. Same daggone message we've been trying to tell you, but whatever. So I appreciate that she is able to reach people that I would never reach because of the demonization of somebody like me, because of them trying to pretend that I'm unintelligent, just because of all the things that they've said about me. It has made it to where certain people would never be able to hear me. So I appreciate that part of it in this moment. Now, I also know that Marge wanted to run for Senate. Them poll numbers wasn't looking good. They wasn't looking good. They wasn't looking good. And so I think that they are really struggling even still right now on that Senate race. So I would not be surprised if she ended up ultimately deciding that she really is going to jump back into that race because her poll numbers were so bad, right? And the one guy that they thought was going to be amazing did that stupid launch video where he spelled Georgia wrong. He spelled Georgia wrong.
Honestly, that feels quaint.
I mean, I was
imagine
like,
a world where the worst offense a Republican could commit in 2025 was spelling a word wrong.
but I'm like, how many people on your team? Y'all all, you running to be the senator. Anyway, so I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, we just saw a little shakeup on the GOP side in Texas where Wesley Hunt decided that he was going to jump in. Nobody told him to do that. He couldn't mind his own business. So now, you know, Cornyn mad at him and Paxton, I don't know, who knows, child, he's something else. So I don't know that I'm going to put it past Marjorie because they still have a lot of time before they have their primary. And I am curious to see if she is able to move the polling so that she can become an actual viable candidate to run against Ossoff. That's my thought. It's my thought.
From Jews control the weather to you know, moderate Marjorie Taylor Greene. What a journey we've seen. So I am curious. You had mentioned, you know, the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk situation. You're one of the more outspoken members of the Democratic caucus. I would contend that we need everybody to be an outspoken member of the Democratic caucus, but alas. And for that reason, I should note that I am very grateful for you because we have so many. I look at every seat in the House, every seat in the Senate as an opportunity. You know, it's a built-in megaphone, right? It's an opportunity for somebody to have their voice heard, and we have so many people there. In those, you know, there's just a few hundred seats. Like that's it. That's who gets the megaphones in this country. And so many people either are incapable or unwilling to use that megaphone that they have to really, you know, force some change or make their voices heard or reach people in a way that you have done. So I just want to take this opportunity right now while we're with you and thank you for using that megaphone the way that I think everybody should.
No. No, listen. Y'all sit down. I always, now, interesting, I'm going to let you finish your question, but people always ask about things like imposter syndrome. And I'm like, I'll never get that. The only time I get that is when people applaud me for just doing what I was elected to do. I don't think that it should ever be a matter of needing to celebrate somebody for just doing their job. And so I'm thankful that God gave me an opportunity and saw fit for me, a very unlikely person, to sit in Congress, especially in this moment. But I think to be celebrated for doing my job is never what it should be. I think that what we should be doing is pushing everybody else to do their jobs.
So I wanted to ask, in light of the fact that you're high profile, and in light of the fact that we are in a much different political environment than we have been in the past, and I share the same thoughts about that. I started doing what I do 10 years ago, and it was a much safer world than I think we're in right now. But how are you doing on that front, in light of the fact that you're a public figure in a world where there's a lot of political violence going on, and that we have to look over our shoulders now in ways that we might not have had to before?
Yeah. So I minimize how much I know. I have no notifications on my phone. None. So I've got lots of followers on lots of platforms. And X is a cesspool of hell. Jesus Christ, it's so bad. It's so bad. So every once in a while I may look at the comments and just troll somebody or block them, because my block game's strong. But for the most part, I just don't engage, especially since I know how many bot farms there are. I mean, we've engaged in conversations globally in bipartisan ways. The Republicans won't talk about it, where a number of our modern day democracies are concerned about what usually China and Russia are doing, and they're usually using social media to interfere and to create kind of this environment. So I know that a lot of it is not real. But what they do is they're creating, again, kind of this alternate reality for some people, and it is becoming so real to the extent that there are people that get activated. Also, I'm a gun-toting Texan. I've never shied away from telling people that I got guns. So they can't ever be like, oh, she's one of them Democrats. I got a license to carry. That's number one. But also, I come from a lineage of people that I know that they didn't risk their lives for me to then be able to be in a position of power and to be afraid. So we're very thoughtful. Poor Capitol Police is overwhelmed because of all the threats that kind of come in on so many of us. But, and frankly, I trust Capitol Police, but I don't know how I trust some of these other agencies like the FBI, who would be charged with doing kind of the prosecutorial side of like investigations. Like basically Capitol Police is kind of like your police, they'll do enough, and then they should technically be turning cases over to the FBI. And then, ultimately the DOJ should be indicting. So like that's kind of, it's the follow through for me on those pieces that is pretty concerning. But I have told people over and over that, they are not providing us the security that we should have. They don't provide us any, actually. The only way that you get like a detail is if you are in leadership in the House. And it's only like the top 2 or 3 on the Democratic side, and then it's some people on the Republican side. It has nothing to do with your threat level at all. It has everything to do with if you're in leadership. And so I have to raise money. But I'm always just so encouraged because, as I've told so many of my supporters, like, I've got your back and it's clear that you've got mine. And so those small dollar donations, they are adding up, but like literally it's the people that are keeping me safe. And yeah. And so I am truly grateful to people. Like I will every once in a while look in my Act Blue so that I can figure out like how many like donors, because sometimes people feel like, oh, my $1 or my $5 or my $10, it's just not enough. And I tell people all the time, no, it is. Like it really is, because it adds up. And so the last time I looked, I think between January and now, we've had over 330,000 kind of unique donors to our campaign. And it is the most beautiful thing to me. Because to me, that is what people power looks like. It looks like people coming together in support of someone versus having somebody drop $250 million on you so that you can get into office.
if I were to go on my phone and want to donate, where would I go?
It's jasmineforus.com.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
I didn't pay him to say that.
No, she didn't. Okay, so to that end, I think that we're all in the same boat here, where we're watching a lot of this stuff befall us, and I think so much of what Trump and Republicans do these days is scientifically engineered to make us feel helpless,
Yes.
to make us feel
Yes.
hopeless, because if people give up, throw up their hands, and say, there's nothing I can do. That gives them an easier glide path to be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so I have two questions here. What can individual folks do who are looking to make some difference, who don't have a big platform or a member of Congress, whatever it may be? And the second question, just more broadly as we wrap up, is what gives you hope in a political environment that, again, seems scientifically engineered to take that hope away?
Yeah. So the first thing is that don't ever cede your power. So don't worry about if you don't have millions of followers. It doesn't matter. There are people that you touch and you influence every single day. Whether you're talking about your family members, your coworkers, your children, your church members, your sorority sisters. I saw the AKA, but I know the Deltas are here because the Deltas always show up. But you all have to understand that you have a sphere of influence. And there are so many people that don't want to listen to politicians at all, but they'll listen to you. So number one, make sure that you recognize that you have influence. Number two, I would actually ask that each of you get involved in a campaign. I don't care what campaign. I really don't. I mean, don't let it be a MAGA campaign. But other than that, no guardrails, okay? Because right now we've got Prop 50. That's a campaign, right? So, talk to people about Prop 50. Get them to vote yes on Prop 50. Talk about how this is connected to fairness. Talk about how it's connected to our democracy and our survival. Talk about this is connected to accountability for this administration. He knows that his policies are so unpopular that he's decided he wants to cheat to win. We can't allow him to steamroll us, especially in California. California, he still owes y'all money from the fires. He's acting as if he is the president of only the red states, and he's not even doing good by them, if you want to be honest. So make sure you get out there, you talk to people about Prop 50, you get them to vote yes on Prop 50. That is something you all can do right now. In addition to that, we know that it is our governors, it is our mayors, it is our attorney generals. When we talk about going to court for so long, people were saying, well, Congress, y'all need to be suing. And I'm like, I agree. But they say I can't. So, but it's been the Democratic attorney generals that have gotten together and said, no, you can't take away dollars that Congress appropriated because they are Article 1. This is their power, right? So make sure you're getting involved in those races and those elections. Secretary of States, we know right now that a Republican decided to buy Dominion. I don't know about trusting them machines. I don't know about trusting them machines now. But it's Secretary of States. They're the ones that are over the administration of our elections. We need to sign a petition. Don't buy Dominion. Don't buy Dominion. Get rid of the Dominions. We don't want them. Okay? So, we can be working on that. We see what they're doing in cities like Chicago and Portland, but we've got amazing mayors that are standing strong. We've got amazing governors and Governor Pritzker and Governor Gavin Newsom, right? So get involved in some election. If you are concerned about the fact that they don't want history to be taught or they are banning books, then get involved in that school board election, because I'm trying to tell you the most pain is felt on the lower level. And they usually don't have the funding. They usually don't have the platforms. And there's something that you can do. I mean, those are the elections that people don't participate in. So you can shift it very easily, right? in a low turnout election, it only takes a little bit to shift that, right? So get involved in some election, do some research, find out somebody that just gets you going, and decide you're going to do something. And just so you know, there's something for everybody. You got to have a party planner. So if you're a partying type of person, honey, we need you too, right? Like, who do you think puts together the rallies and all the events? There is something for each and every one of you. If you're good at graphics, they absolutely need good graphic people. If you're good at photography, that just know that you have something to offer. All the cooks, there's something for everyone, okay? So don't believe that you don't have a space. So that's what I would say as of kind of how do you get involved. Obviously, donations are great, but people power is very helpful, okay? All right, so that's that. What gives me hope? It's actually, it's you. It's the people. You know, when I am stuck in D.C., things can get real dark real fast. And we're in a bubble. And I go online, and that's his own bubble too. But for me, what matters is when real people show up. That's when I know that we are making a difference. That's when I know that the message is getting out. And that's when I know that the people are ready to fight back. And so it's you that inspire me, because there are days that I wake up and I ask myself, why do I do this? I made a lot more money, not a lot more money, but I did. I made more money practicing law. I did. I made more money. And even though I was dealing with real killers back then, I didn't have as many death threats. True story. True story. Imagine that. Anyway. And so, you know, there are days that I even get down and say, is it worth it? And then it's usually when I go home or when I go into somebody else's district because they ask me to. And I know that people are thirsting for real leadership in this moment. And I then get resettled into why it is that I am here and what my purpose is in this moment. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for deciding to show up today.
And I would just echo that claim. So much of what I do on my platform is fighting. There's a lot of things that I try to fight against. There is obviously the overreach of this administration, the anti-democratic forces, but I think the worst thing really is apathy, and we have so much of that in this country. And when we see the numbers of people who voted, we focus so much on people who vote for Republicans and people who vote for Democrats, but there's that big glaring number of people who don't vote at all. And so I just want to say, echoing what the Congresswoman said here, thank you all for coming out, because you know it's a random weekend and an off year, and you all showed up in person because you give a shit. And if everybody was like you, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now. So truly, like from the bottom of my heart, thank you for caring. Thank you for being here fighting. I also want to say thank you to Andrea and the whole team at Writer's Bloc for putting this together.
Thank you.
And finally, and don't leave yet because Andrea wants to say a few words, but I want to thank Jasmine Crockett here, not just for coming to here in LA to speak to us, but also for showing the exact type of real leadership that you had just spoken about. We are so desperate for people who understand this media environment, who are willing to take the gloves off and fucking throw a punch, and you are exactly that. You're a badass. The future of the Democratic Party. I'm so proud to share a stage with you, so thank you. And Andrea, I know you wanted to say some words too.
I just wanted, well, first of all, yeah, the most badass Congresswoman. Please come back soon. We have so many more questions. But I just want to thank both of you. But what I also want to say is I need all of you to stay in your seats, because Jasmine and Brian are going to walk down the aisle, and I can't have you in the aisle while they're walking outside. So they're going to be accompanied by security, and I need you to stay in your seats, please. So thank you. I hope you come back to Writer's Block soon. We have Governor Andy Beshear with Brian, and all sorts of other.
We'll be back on October 25th with Governor
not
Beshear.
here,
So if you're
not
not yet
here, but
signed
another-
up, please come and visit us.
Yeah, okay. They're going down the aisle, and thank you.